honestly, though, this conversation was amazing. I am a small business owner myself, as many of us black women in this room are. And this was just really important to hear, particularly what the Biden-Harris administration is doing to continue to resource those of us who are entrepreneurs and have small businesses. So that was a powerful conversation, and you all had a treat. So our final panel of today will look at how ESG builds brands with younger audiences and creates a competitive edge within the industry. First, we have Miss Liliahn Majeed. She's the Chief Diversity. Oh, she got a squad too. I love the squad. She is the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at North America L'Oreal Group. We also have Rod West, Group President, Utility Operations at Entergy. Give it up for Rob.
That's okay, I got it.
And we also have our moderator, Suzanne Malveaux, who is the
thank you.
President and CEO of Malveaux Global Media and a former White House correspondent. And we will also be joined. I know, y'all did. And we also will be joined by a powerful voice, Wawa Guthrie, a founder of Black Girl Environmentalist. She will be joining us in just a few moments. We're going to get this conversation started, all right?
Okay. Thank you for hanging in there. And the best is for last, right? Okay, no pressure. We're going to bring it home. And Wawa will be getting here. She's stuck in traffic, so when she comes, we'll just have her join us. One of the things that we talked about earlier, and it's come up several times, is DEI. And the murder of George Floyd. I covered George Floyd's story as well as Black Lives Matter.
Let's talk about me.
And, okay, we got mics? We're good. Black Lives Matter. And it really, at that time, many people thought it was the birth of something very new and very different. It felt different since the Civil Rights Movement. And that really came about when we saw a huge shift in the way companies responded. Corporations and DEI. We've since heard about the pushback, and it's a cycle, right? Now we're dealing with ESG, and it is a strategy for dealing with the environment, with the society, and with governance. But how do we break the cycle? I mean, how do you make sure that it actually lasts, that it's going to stick? I'll start with you.
I'm glad you started with me because I do want to be resolute in saying this on behalf of L'Oreal. We use future-proof a lot at L'Oreal, likely as many of you do, and I truly believe, without question, that if we are going to remain the #1 beauty company in the world, if we are going to future-proof our organization, then deeply investing in sustainability and D&I is the way that we are going to do it, without question. And the way that it sticks, because I just feel like this is history repeating itself right now, this is just the response to our progress always is punishment. And so that's what we're seeing and we're experiencing right now. And so using this moment and the attacks that we're getting to fuel our ongoing push to do not only what's good for business, but our #1 reason doing this at L'Oreal is because it is the morally right thing to do. And there is so much going on, and I believe that moral clarity is imperative right now in this moment.
And Liliahn, specifically talk about what L'Oreal is doing, because you've had multiple campaigns, and you launched another one as well. And I know that you are not only looking at products, but also the way you make products, the way you package products. What are you actually doing?
Yeah, so there is in thinking about this, there was a message from a consultant that we employed that really helps to guide our work in this space. And he posed the question of, how are we going to enjoy or ensure that we still enjoy a modern and comfortable consumer lifestyle without destroying the planet that we live on and ruining the lives of those who inhabit it. And that is something that really does guide our direction. I'll focus on sustainability because that's the point of this conversation. I could go on about D&I all day, every day. Really guides what it is that we do. And so when I talked about that focus on sustainability at the beginning of it, there is not a meeting that I attend at L'Oreal. There's not a consumer forum that I attend at L'Oreal. There's not a plant or a distribution center that I visit without metrics, because that really is what holds people accountable, is when you know that there are specific things that you are tracking, that you're holding people accountable for, and you're bringing them up over and over again. So we spend a whole lot of time talking about all the buzzwords that we hear out there. Is how are we going from extractive to regenerative? How are we focusing on refillable packaging? Like, we are very, very, very focused by a certain date in ensuring all of our packaging is refillable, and the things that we use to create it, the water that we use to create it, is also reused as well. And inclusive sourcing is really big for us, and ensuring that the people that are creating those products are getting paid a fair living wage, because poverty, and we were talking about this earlier, is still something that we cannot avoid as well. And the linchpin, I believe, in our approach and our strategy is that we tie executive compensation to goals around water
That makes a big difference.
and climate and biodiversity. And you know, the last thing that I'll say, I always like kind of repeatable messages and things that guide us, is that it's not too late. It's not too late, but it's urgent, and we have to behave as if we love the future.
Thank you. So, Rod, I mean, are they buzzwords? Are they just initials? I mean, ESG, DI. I mean, at Entergy, how do you actually employ that?
Yeah, and I've had the, first of all, a good afternoon, evening to each of you. It's an honor for me to be here. I'm the group president for the Entergy Corporation. We serve the Gulf South. We're the power provider. You fill in the blank of your electric provider wherever you happen to live. We have Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, and the city of New Orleans. The conversation for us for ESG wasn't about buzzwords. In 2001, Entergy was the first utility company in the United States to voluntarily talk about reducing and committing to reducing its greenhouse gas emissions. We were a pariah in the industry because it was not at that time a buzzword. Newsflash, I am black and have been all of my life. And
No.
I've been, shocking, I know, but I've been in the C-suite since 2010, and I have watched throughout the last almost 30 years of my professional career the various iterations of the conversation we now call DEI, DIB, and the like. And I have seen the ebbs and flows of the conversation in the corporate boardroom. And to your question about the George Floyd dynamic, it was a blip on the screen. The sustainability question is all about tying incentives to the outcomes that matter to the communities we serve. And for the executives at Entergy and our board, it wasn't until the board and the C-suite put their money where their mouth is and made commitments to not only our customers and employees, but made commitments to Wall Street that we were going to track the outcomes for our stakeholders around I have to call it DIBS because the E is litigious. And my report card is the stock price. We're in this conversation to create wealth. We don't have permanent friends and permanent enemies. We have to be mature in how we talk about managing the complex interests. And for me, durability, the sustainability of the conversation starts with where I am in my business. That's the infrastructure around powering the lives of folks. I'll end the point by making this point. Climate change is a conversation you get to have after your bills are paid, after your kids are fed. We're in the infrastructure business powering the lives of the communities we serve. We know how important what we do is. But we have one of the largest industrial complexes in the United States of America in terms of commercial and industrial customers. But we also have some of the poorest individuals. 40% of my 3 million customers, residential customers, live on a household income of $35,000 or less. While we spend $6 billion a year in capital to design, build, and sustain the infrastructure that powers this hurricane alley that is the Gulf South, we recognize that for us, ESG is not a buzzword. Our customers have been living and battling the politics of poverty, politics of race, and the inequities around education and opportunities for every decade that I've been both black and in the C-suite. So our board is committed to it not being a buzzword, but to accountability for us. And we hold ourselves accountable to the outcomes that matter.
And Rod, if you can also address, because we did talk about the poverty, and it's just quite incredible, and your family grew up New Orleans here as well as mine. Tell us a little bit about the fact that people need jobs, they need employment. Your company is really one of the largest employers, but does it reflect the community, the population? How do you manage to draw them into the prosperity you're talking about?
Yeah, first you have to tell the truth, because we talk about diversity. You don't get to choose your diversity. Our employee base reflects the communities we serve, and it is a diverse. You think about the Mississippi Delta; it's different from the city of New Orleans versus Bunkie or other cities across the Gulf South. But one common thread that's been at the cornerstone of our philanthropic, of our public policy initiatives, it's battling poverty through education and economic development. Those who are underserved, those who have not participated in this conversation around resiliency and adaptation, it's education and economic activity that gives them a fighting chance to participate in the sustainable sort of triage of any ailment in workforce training, in education, and lifting people up out of poverty and giving folks an opportunity.
I want to actually need to read this here. It's talk about what's at stake, and there are some statistics here. According to the CNBC report, today's generation of investors is on the receiving end of a massive wealth transfer from the boomer generation, as much as $68 trillion. Also, 80% of the world's largest companies reporting exposure to climate change-related risk. But a ESG survey says that more than 50% of the corporations currently publish no ESG metrics. So how do you actually measure progress? And what do you do in terms of the profit, right? Because you're looking at different types of groups, young groups, different generations, but you still have to make a profit.
And this is where I just go back to, I really don't understand, and I'll speak about DEI more broadly and then sustainability. I don't understand companies who are backing away from these really important things for a couple of reasons. Number one, when you look at the changing demographics of the country, it looks very different. And if we are not demonstrating, that's what I tell people all the time, when we're frustrated and we're angry about what's going on in companies pulling back from DE&I, I need you to vote. Obviously, let's vote in elections, but that's a whole nother conversation. But also vote with your wallets and look at the companies that are still talking about sustainability, that are publishing their ESG metrics, that are talking about DE&I, and say, because that's what I tell our CEO and my colleagues, is that if we do not continue to invest in DE&I, and it's not really a debate with them, which I feel so grateful to be at L'Oreal, because there has not been a single conversation about pulling back from sustainability or DEI in this moment. What I also, though, just do to continue to remind everybody is that if we do not demonstrate very loudly and proudly that this is what we care about, they are going to go and take their money elsewhere. And so I ask people to make sure that I'm not a liar in doing that as a whole. And so I just don't see how people, if we take out the moral reason, because I think that is enough and should be enough for us to act, all the numbers suggest, when we know with Gen Z, they're any number of statistics where Gen Zers are basically saying, I'm not working for you and I'm not buying for you if you are not investing in sustainability. And actually, I talked to people who, we were talking about generations on the prep call. I talked to boomers. I talked to people in the silent generation. I'm a Gen Xer. We all feel the same way. And so to me, that really is how we keep this going, how we continue. So we have metrics. So we have the metrics around carbon, around carbon neutrality and what we're doing from a water usage standpoint, all of these things. But to me, we are in business to make money, and this is how we continue to make money, and we are seeing every single statistic suggests that people are going to start to make, if they aren't already, decisions about where they're going to work and decisions about where they're going to buy based on what we are actually doing.
Is it easier for L'Oreal to do that, to actually follow that model when you're paying attention to the environment and to governance and society, when your consumer base is motivated and supported by the Gen Z generation and the millennials and Gen X that say, we expect more from somebody who's going to, put out the products for our hair, for our lipstick, for our makeup, that those are the expectations of your company?
Yeah, it helps us. What I love, I just joined L'Oreal about a year ago, is that we have a strong moral compass. And we have a strong desire to leave the world better than we found it. So we are doing this, yes, because we are hearing that Gen Z and millennials, and I'm sure Gen Alpha is going to be even louder and prouder as well.
Gen Alpha,
yeah,
that's the next one.
That's the next one. I have a Gen Alpha.
And
yes.
any boomers around here willing to say they're a boomer?
Hey, we love the boomers.
Or close to boomers,
yes,
close
aging
to
is like
boomers.
we should be loud and proud about being boomers, right?
That's right,
And that we
that's
are
right.
here, because not everybody has the opportunity to do so. So yes, we are in business to make money, so that propels us, but our moral compass and what is right we can't have a healthy business without a healthy society. We just can't. And so that is honestly what fuels us and what drives us. And fortunately, it also helps us make money. So that's a benefit.
Rod, what's the controversy around all of this? I mean,
Stir it up.
I know, mix it up a little bit.
I am so moved, by the conviction of my sister, and proud of the stance that you take. And I live it every day. When I'm talking to investors who don't care about whether I am black, brown, or white. They care about whether or not I'm creating value. And there are a group of investors who don't buy the premise and who aren't moved by what we assume to be a morally accepted fact. It is axiomatic in the black community that we're talking about doing the right thing. How many decades have we been talking about the issue of the moral clarity that came after George Floyd? Our challenge is this conversation is far more nuanced than we're comfortable having it. And if you think about where we're sitting right now, we're sitting in New Orleans, Louisiana, where after the storm passed and you didn't do anything different to your house, and I can provide power, but you can't take power, the economy still is shut down. It's an education process that starts at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy and finding those commonalities on the way up. It's how our board has talked about DE&I or DIB. We call it DIBS.
I love it.
I got to be
DIBS.
consistent.
Or ESG.
It's the evolution of the conversation has been an evolution of education, and it starts with telling the truth that this thing lands differently on folks who would otherwise be fair seeming, but we have to find outcomes that we measure that folks are willing to hold themselves accountable to. And as a result, I can be agnostic as to whether you're doing it because you're a true believer or you're doing it because you don't want to be out of compliance. Early on, I want to see the right thing happening, period, full stop. And I need incentives in place to keep people moving who would otherwise kind of trail off to do their own thing.
We are running out of time, unfortunately. So I'm just going to quickly ask you to, bottom line, what is the most important thing? We have world leaders that are watching. We have entrepreneurs, influencers. What is the most important thing that they need to know to push forward for racial and economic equity?
I just want to, so in preparing for this panel, there's a scientist named Ayanna Johnson who Time Magazine published her commencement address at Middlebury College. And so I just want to leave you with some words, because she talks about this notion of moral clarity and just believes that there are some simple rights and wrongs. And so I just want to use this moment to just quote which she just, I only want to focus on right because we don't want to focus on the wrongs right now in this conversation. And she says, "It is right to steward life and justice on this magnificent planet. It is right to quickly transition to renewable energy. It is right to protect and restore habitats and species. It is right to hold corporations accountable. It is right to ensure a just transition, leaving no one behind. And it is right to enact strong government policies that will accelerate all of this." And so I'll close with something that I said in my first response, that it's not too late, but it's urgent. And we must behave as if we love the future.
Thank you. Rod, a call to action.
Leadership matters. Leadership matters. Leadership matters. Hold yourself accountable to what you say you believe in. And I don't need you to tell me what's important. I only need to watch what you spend your resources on. That's the report card that we hold ourselves accountable to. We exist to create value for 4 key stakeholders. It's the customers we serve, the employees who do the Lord's work. It's the investors who invest in our company with the expectation, much like yours, right, that they're going to get a return of and on their investment. And there is nothing wrong with the pursuit of profit. But, and it was said, we only rise when our communities rise. So we're linked together in this conversation. So thanks for the opportunity.
All right. Thank you both. Thank you both.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Suzanne.
Thank you. Really excellent conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, L'Oreal. Thank you.
Voice of God. Let's go.
Voice of God.
Let's go.